start. Okay, so in our previous session we have seen that how basically we can add crow path to our Chrome, how we can see the DOM structure, right? So today we are going to move forward a bit and we will try to capture that XPath and we will learn how we can create our own XPath. So to create our own XPath, first we need to learn some of the concepts and fundamentals of XPath. Okay, basically those are the ways or methods that we have in XPath which we can use to identify an object. So let's just jump into this. Okay, so let's as in our previous class we have discussed, right, our test scenario is like for this login functionality, right? So our test scenario is login functionality. Now what is the test case we are trying to automate? So let we have two test case. Okay, test case 01, okay, and test case tc underscore 002 and tc underscore 001. Okay, two test case we have. First test case, and in first test case what we need to write, we need to do that verify. So our test case is verify login with valid credentials, first test case. Okay, and our second test case will be like verify error message. Okay, error message with invalid credentials, right? So our test scenario is login and we have test case is like one test case to successfully logged into the application, second test case maybe to validate the error message. Now to automate this two test case, or what we need to do first, we need to first check that what are the areas we need to cover over here. So to verify login with valid credentials, test case 1, what we need to do, as in the, so I guess you must have known that in while writing test case we have to give a first test header, right? Or you can say test case name, or you can say test case whatever you want to write, test case name like this. Then in the description you can write that what we need to provide. So we need to provide valid username, we need to provide valid password, and then we need to click on the login. So once we do that, so that will be our test description, right? Test description will be provide valid username, provide valid password, click on login. So we are basically dealing with these three things. So when we are dealing with these three things, then we need to identify these three web element on our web page. And to identify that, we are going to take help of XPath, right? So our test description will be like, we need to write that enter valid username and password, correct? That one we need to write and click on login. And what is the expected output? Expected output is user should be successfully logged in, right? So we will find a way to validate that, and expected value we will see. And the test data, what will be the test data? Test data will be our valid username and valid password, right? So let's start, okay, to automate this test case. So first username I need to validate, I need to identify this web element. I have right clicked on it, click on inspect, go over this arrow, crow path, right? So by default you can see there is a relative XPath it has created, right? Using this we can identify. If I click on enter, see a green border has appeared, so it is working fine. But this type of XPath is not at all advisable to use. In fact, you cannot use those XPath. Why? Because it has lots of you can see there are lots of number and lots of root, from root it has identified it, and lots of numbers are there. So whenever you see there are lots of numbers or anything which you think may change in future, we should avoid those XPath. Okay, and how you will know that? Basically those kind of XPath, can you see this one lots of numbers they have used, right? So maybe in future if something will change in the web page, those numbers are going to get affected, right? So what we need to do, we need to write our own XPath. How we are going to write our own XPath? Okay, always XPath starts with double slash, because we always try to follow our relative one, right? So when we start, first thing you will do, put double slash over here. Okay, then what you need to write, the next thing you need to write is the first thing you see in the background. So when we right click on it, click on inspect, we got this gray background, right? In this, the first thing you see, what is the first thing? Input, right? So this is the type of web element. So first thing you should write over here is input. Okay, just simple input. The first thing you see over here, copy paste it over there, input, first thing. Then what you need to do, two square bracket, okay, open and close. So square bracket you need to use, okay, open and close square bracket. Inside that, what you need to write, inside that you need to write the property of that web element. So right now we have a web element called username, which is a type input, right? This is a input type of web element, right? And to identify this web element, we have multiple properties. What are the properties? Everything you see in red: type, ng model, required autofocus class, something. Okay, XPath is nothing. When you click on something, it will by default come as XPath 1. So if I click on it, it will come XPath 1. So this is not one. So we have type as property, we have ng model as property, we have required autofocus class as property. So we have multiple properties over here which can help us to identify this web element uniquely. Now the job is how we are going to know that which one we should use. Okay, so always go with the property which is unique, specific, referring to that particular web element. So in this, you can see that ng model the property name has value called as user.name, which is the most compatibility you can see as compared to the field name that we can see on the UI. So in the UI, it has written username, and this property also contains a value called as user.name. So always try to pick the one which is more relevant. Okay, after that we can do some hit and trial method. Okay, so this is the most relevant one I can see. So what we can do next thing, inside the square bracket you need to write the property name with @ what is the property name? ng model. What is the value? But here single quote. Okay, single quote, user.name, enter. Can you see? It is able to identify it. So whatever by default it has given us, okay, whatever by default it has given us, that is not a correct one. Why? Because it is too long, first of all, and it has many values hard coded into it, right? So if you can see, if I click on this, see, this is the one, it has been given by Xpath, right? And which one we have written is this one. So this is the one which is not that much reliable. Why? Because there are lots of numbers they have used, hard coded numbers, right? But here we have not used any hard coded number. We have just created our XPath of our own, right? So now this is the one we are going to use. In real time, we basically use those XPath. We don't use these XPath. But sometimes those XPath also good, but you have to take the decision that those XPath should be free of any hard-coded numbers. Okay, that should be your thumb rule. Okay. So now this is the one we have identified using ng model. Now can we identify using another property? Right, let's try to check that. Okay, can we identify using another property? Okay, so let me copy paste it over here. Okay, instead of ng model, I am going to use the another property called as type, right? And here I am going to use text, enter. So we are able to identify also with this property, right? So here with type property also we are able to identify the web element. With ng model property also we are able to identify the web element. But sometimes what happens, you have to try this like the way I have tried, right? You have to first try with ng model, then you can try with type, because every time it will not get identified uniquely only with the single property. Okay, many a time you will face this issue that maybe some property will work, another property will not work, right? And there is no hard and fast rule that you should go with this property. Okay, it depends, it changes according to the web development, what kind of language they have used to design the web, right? So it depends on that. So what you need to do, you should not dependent on any of the property. You should try with every property. If it is coming as one element matching and green signal, then you are good to go with that particular one, right? But out of those, we should always pick the most relevant one. What is the most relevant? Over here, ng model user.name. This is the most relevant because our username in the UI, it has been mentioned as username, and this one also contains a value which is the most relevant one, as you can see on the UI, right? Yes. So this is the first one we have identified, right? The first XPath. Now we need to identify two more XPath. Let's go for this one. Let's inspect password. So now you can see over here again how we can write this one, // what is this type? Input, square bracket, start and end, and then which one we will pick. Ng model is also user dot password, type is also password, so both are pretty much promising. We should go with type because type is also password, ng model also user dot password, so anyone you can use. Okay, let's go with type because first one we had already used ng model. Enter. Right, so we are able to identify it by using the property type. Right, see, so now this will be your username, this will be your password. Correct. Now what is the default one? Default XPath is this one. See, again some hard coded numbers. Right, so we should not use the hard coded numbers one which was provided by the ChroPath 2. Right, so these two are the input. Now let's go and identify the login because we need to click on login also during automation. Right, so now let's try to identify this login. Again same double click, but what is the type over here? This is a button, so what I should write over here? Button. Again square bracket. Which property I will pick? Class is main button, which doesn't look much promising, but here type is equal to submit. Right, so let's go with submit. Submit. Okay, enter. Yes, so it is able to identify
Siddharth,
it properly. Yeah.
actually, can I take the x path equals to 1? Can I take the property?
No, that is
Why?
not a constant one.
Okay, okay, okay.
That is not a constant one. So first what we did, we have tried with type submit. Right, guys, just let us do one thing. Let's first complete everything. Okay, then we will then you can ask. Okay, so or else the flow will get break. Okay. Okay, so now this is a type button. Correct. At the rate type is equal to, what is the type? Type is equal to submit. Enter. One element matching successfully identified. But what is the default one? We can see over here there is a default one also. Right, what is the default one? The default one is button contains text login. So here it has not used any of the hard coded number. Right, the one we have designed is also working fine. Correct, and the one given by ChroPath is also working fine. So in this case what you should do, if you are getting something which is not related to any hard coded value, then go for it. Why you will waste time to write it again? Right, so here you can see when I go to the login, the default XPath that has been created by ChroPath is pretty much good to go because it does not contain any of the hard coded value. Right, so we should pick this one. But what does this mean? I will explain you right now. Okay, so this is one of the method by XPath. Right, so initially two are pretty much simple. Right, we have used the property, but here there is one more thing called as contains text. Right, contains text. So the second one. So first method we have seen how to identify object using XPath. We have seen this one. The second one is using contains text. So what happens? There is a way called as contains text, which will help us to identify some of the objects directly by using the text that we are able to see on the UI. So here in the UI, what you can see? Login. So the button is basically login. So now how you can identify it using contains text? You can use the same button. After that you can use contains, after that text comma whatever the text you can see on the UI. For example, let's I want to identify this username, this section, not this input box, only this section. Right, so if I right click on it, inspect. Right, if I click on it, see how it has identified it. It has identified using, so what is the type of this? It's a span, so it has written span, and it contains text username. Right, contains text username. So whenever you see that something is visible on UI, and you can always try to identify it first with contains text because it is the most easiest one. Right, just use this method, just know how to use this method. Okay, I will provide this document. Okay, this is the format. Okay, contains text you need to write, and here you need to pass the value that you can see on the UI. So here we can see write username. So let me write only user. Enter. Still it is able to identify. Why? Because it contains text, and in this page we have only one span which contains text user. That's why it is able to identify it. If I write only S, can you see two web elements matching? Why? We have S over here, we have S over here, and both are of type span, right? Both are of type span. So span contains text S, right? That's why you have to write in a way which can be easily identified. So for password, in fact, you can use word also. It's not like you have to write the complete password. See, why? Because there is nothing, there is no another web element I can see on the page which is a type of span and which contains the word, which contains word in the text. So right now there are multiple ways you can use your contains text, right? In fact, you can use star also, two elements matching, right? Because after username there is a star, after password there is a star, right? So those are the different ways you can play around with contains text. So this is one more important, this is the most important one. In fact, while writing XPath in real time, you are going to use it a lot. Contains text, it is very very useful. Okay, now there is one more way. Okay, so let there is a scenario. Okay, let there is a scenario, let I want to identify this section. Okay, or let I have entered something, some wrong value I have entered, and I clicked on login. So this error message I got, right? And I need to validate it in the second test case. Let me try to inspect it. So I have inspected, and what I got, P, it's a type P, right? It's a type P, correct? So here I will write P, and ng show message error ng binding. So all those things we can use, definitely show message or something something. But those among them, the most promising one is using contains text. Why? Because we can validate it more easily. So if I write over here invalid, only invalid also, if I write enter, see, it is able to identify the error message. So this is the most easiest way. Contains text helps us many time, okay, while identifying the objects, because it is quite easy. Rather than going into the means property types and passing the value over there, just directly use contains text. But yes, sometimes it also not works. That's why we need to learn all the methods that XPath has given to us, so that which is feasible for our web element, we can pick it and use it. Okay, so now this is the contents one. Now the third one we will see. The third one is how we are going to use and operator in XPath, and then or operator in XPath. So how it is going to help you out. So let's, there is a situation, okay, that you are trying to identify an object. Let's this one, login one, I am trying to identify. And when I try to identify it, I'm unable to identify it with type submit. Means when I use the property type submit, I am not able to identify it. Why? Because there are two buttons with the same login functionality. Okay, maybe in your page. Okay, the scenario is like when you use slash slash button, okay, at the rate type is equal to submit, what you found out. So now we are getting one element matching, that fine. Okay, yes, so when I found this one, button type is equal to submit, right? So what happens over here, we are able to identify it uniquely, one element matching. But let in your application you are unable to identify with this much property. Then what you can do, you can add multiple properties to identify it more uniquely. So now I have one more option over here to use the class. So what I will do, and at the rate class is equal to main button, enter. See, now also it is able to identify. So sometime what happens, only single property is not going to help you to identify the object. You need to use multiple property for it, right? Sometime single property is not going to help. So in that case, what you can do, you can use and, so that it will be easy for you to combine multiple property and identify an object uniquely, right? Similarly, there is one more scenario adding to it. Sometimes the situation is like when you load the page, your page button will identify it sometime with type, sometime with class, and you don't know at what condition. Means every time you refresh, the it will your test case get your web element get identified with type, and again if you refresh, it is identified with class. So you are not sure which one to use. In that case, you can also use or. See, so what will happen, no matter you have the after how many refresh, because many a time we get a condition like we have to refresh the page and check, refresh, check, refresh, check. In those cases, what happens, sometimes some of the property after get loading or due to some another sync issues, some of the properties stop working, but the another property will work perfectly fine, but you are not sure which one will work. In that case, what you can do, you can use or with the multiple property, right? So we have a and operator, we have a or operator. Both operator are pretty much useful, okay, but or we barely use, okay, we don't use or much in real time, and we do use a lot, okay, but or is like once in a project, that means not more, no, more than that, okay. Once in a project maybe you will able to get this kind of scenario, okay, or else it is very rare, okay. So now this is the fourth method. Now one more method is there, right? One more method called as starts with. Again, this is theoretical. Why it is theoretical? Because starts with we barely use in real time. Okay. So in interview also, if they ask, you can ignore those things, because those things we don't use much in real time projects. Starts with or, but and contains text most used. Okay. Or is less used. Now let's go with starts with. So there is one more method called as starts with. How you can use that? So what you can do, you can use like whatever web element you have, it has starts with which type of property or which type of text, everything you can use. So here I can see that it has starts with my so slash slash p, and it has starts with, I can use this one directly, okay. So the same thing we have written over here, okay. Let me write it so that or else you guys will get confused. Let me write it with starts with, okay. Once you write starts with, see here we have class error message ng binding, the same thing I have written over here. Starts with at the red class error message ng binding, right? So just copy paste it over here, enter, it is able to identify. So in our current project, the web elements are not that complex, okay. So it is easily getting identified with a single object, right? But maybe you will work on a project where those things are not this much simple, okay. In that case, you may need those things and or starts with, okay. So those things you may need, but starts with or we barely use, okay, because those are not much stable, okay. Or is not at all stable, so better not to go with or. Try to use and or child or parent, okay. So now we will jump to the next one, that is the sixth one, that is called a child. Child and parent, I am going to tell you very in depth, because those are the things that you need a lot, okay. First you need contents text, which is very important, okay. Then and a bit, okay. Then this child and parent. Child and parent is very important, okay. So first let me tell you what is the relation of child and parent in Xpath, okay. So now I'm trying to identify this Angular JS. Can you see this link? This is a href, right? That means this is a link, right? So if I want to identify this one, what we can do? We can write slash slash a contains, right? Contains text, comma Angular, right? Does that work? Yes, it works, right? So luckily for us it works, correct, there is no problem in it, okay. So by default also it has given the same thing, okay. So now this is the XPath that we can use to identify this object. But if you can see the flow, right, there in the top there is a parent kind of element over here. If I expand it, okay, there are multiple link inside it. First one, second one, third one, fourth one, all those things resides between this footer and p. So now what happens in a relation, so this is kind of a child for this one, and this is kind of a child of this one. So this p will be parent for this one, and this one, this a href bourbon, will be sibling for this one. So right now how the relation was, this is parent, this is child, And as we have, how many child we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 child we have. So all those 4 child will be sibling to each other. Okay, so parent, child, sibling. But what is footer to this one? So footer will be ancestor for this one. Okay, this is parent, this is ancestor, this is child, and this one is sibling to this child. So now in the sibling also there are two conditions: following sibling, preceding sibling. So now this one will be preceding sibling for this one, because this one is like upper, one step upper in the hierarchy than the second one. So my coffee script is preceding sibling for Bourbon. My AngularJS is preceding sibling for CoffeeScript, and my CoffeeScript is following sibling for AngularJS. So all those are dependent. AngularJS is sibling to CoffeeScript, but which kind of sibling? Preceding sibling, because this is first, and CoffeeScript is following sibling because this is second. So all those things will work in that manner. Okay, but this is the basic relation how it happens in DOM structure. But the question is how we are going to implement the same in our XPath, because we need to implement those relationship in XPath. And if you understand this, you are going to get this interview question 100%. Okay, you are going to get this interview question 100%. Okay, they are going to ask you those relations, and those are very important. Okay, so now we will see how you can know that what are the child and parent I have. Right, so now this is my XPath. After XPath, what do you need to do? Click on // child double dot star, enter. So when I enter it, there is zero element matching. That means I don't have a child for AngularJS, and that is true because all of the elements reside inside P and footer. So there is no child for AngularJS, because for rest of the things are sibling to them, not child to them, right? So let's go to this one. Let's try to identify whatever it has written over here. So whatever XPath is there, we should not use it, but just to show you the child relation, I am using it. So child star, enter. Now how many child I have? I have 5 elements matching. That means 5 elements matching means, see, AngularJS, CoffeeScript, Bourbon, Ruby on Rails, all those are child to P. So when I identified P, okay, so what I did, first I clicked on P and picked the XPath for it. So this is my parent, right? To any object, if you click // child double colon like this star, enter, it will give you all the child for that particular web element. So now I got 5 elements matching for my P, right? For this particular web element I have 5 child, and out of those 5, 4 are my links A, right? 4 are related to links, right? So what another condition what you can use instead of, so that one I have written, see how to get all the child for object with XPath. So this one you can use star. Okay, star you can use to get all the child. Now but my requirement is not that. I want to identify AngularJS. I want to identify AngularJS. I don't want to see all the elements. What you can do? So you know that you have 4 child, 1 to 5 child, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the first child is AngularJS org, which is a type of A, right? So what I'm going to use, I am going to write A1. Let's see what is happening. What it does? Can you see the green mark upper? Can you see? So AngularJS is identified. Why? What I did, first I identified the parent. Okay, then I go to their child. Among their child, I ask them that let me give your first child. Let me identify your first child. So for example, in a family you have a friend, right? And they have 3 child. Okay, A, B, C. They have 3 child A, B, C. Now if you ask them that now you want to meet the second child, what you will do? First you will search the address of parent, then you go to their parent and you ask them that can you call your second child, we want to talk to them, right? So this is how happens in coding also, right? While identifying XPath also. First we identify the parent, then we go to their child. Among their child, we try to pick the first child. Now, if I want to identify Bourbon, what I should do? What I should do? If I want to identify Bourbon,
A3.
correct. A, simple. If I want to identify Ruby Rails, A4. If I want to identify CoffeeScript, A2. So once you understand this logic, guys, this will be very easy. Okay, writing XPath will be very easy, because what happens in real time, currently we are able to identify Bourbon using A also, right, with the properties we have. But sometimes what happens, you will not able to identify this object, but you will be able to identify the parent. So what you can do, you can utilize the parent web element, and just you can use child to reach to the well element which is not getting identified directly. That's why they have given this relation, right? Now let's change a bit. Now let's change the things a bit. This is my child, right? So now let me click slash slash parent star. Now this will be interesting. Can you see? Now there are two elements matching. Now there are two elements matching. Correct? What are those? There is one AHREF, something is identified over here as parent, okay? And one is P. So you can see it has identified this P with the entire flow it has given, that what are the elements that we have, and there are two elements matching as parent. Among them, the first one is the P. So let you have a scenario that you want to identify this P using the child. What you can do? First you go to the parent, right? And then what you can do? Simply write P, enter. So you are identifying parent using child. And the first time what we did, we identified the child using parent. Now we are identifying the parent using child. So there is a scenario, there may be a scenario while working that you get a field where you will not be able to, right? You will not be able to identify it directly. So you can go to their child, reach to the parent, then you can identify. For example, let we know somebody who is very famous, but we don't know about their parents. Then what we do? We go to them and then we talk to their parents, right? Vice versa. So the same way we did in the coding. First we take help of parent to identify child. Now we are taking the help of child to identify parents. Now there is one more relation, right? There is a relation of sibling. So now I want to identify, right now I'm in which web element? CoffeeScript, right? So let me write just following sibling. Sorry, following sibling. What I got? So now I got three siblings or three elements matching, but basically there are two siblings you can see over here. So this one is break XPath. So BR is basically to break the lines and go to the second. So this one we will not consider, but still it will show you as an element. But you can see CoffeeScript has two siblings that has been identified on the screen. Bourbon, Rails, right? And that's true. CoffeeScript, Bourbon, Rails are the following sibling, and AngularJS is preceding sibling. Can you see the difference? So AngularJS is preceding, that's what I was telling, right? AngularJS is preceding sibling for CoffeeScript, and Bourbon and Rails are following sibling for CoffeeScript. Right now, I want to identify AngularJS using CoffeeScript. Then what I did, I have clicked on CoffeeScript, preceding sibling star, because there is only one. But if I want to identify Bourbon, then what I will do? Here I am going to use following sibling, but I got two options, Bourbon and Rails. How you are going to identify Bourbon? Simply write over here A1. Can you see? It has identified Bourbon. Now if I want to identify Rails, 2, right? So it is very easy to, so now we have seen how to identify child from parent, how to identify parent from child, how to identify a following sibling, how to identify a preceding sibling, right? So all those relationship happens inside this XPath only, right? So many a time what happens, so here I have mentioned everything, okay, what we are covering I have noted down over here already, right? So you can refer, okay. So, preceding sibling, following sibling, parent, child. One more is there called as ancestor. Let's see how ancestor works. Okay. First, let's try to find out that what are the ancestor for coffee script, right? Slash slash ancestors star. There are 10 elements matching. But there is what this is red is coming. Spelling I have written wrong. What wrong I have written? There is a S. Enter. So how many ancestor I have? 6 ancestor I have. So can you see it has marked all the ancestor in. See, so behind the scene, when the guy has written the code, he has made this many means ancestors for it, right? For example, let me try to identify one of its ancestor, right? For example, let me check this footer, right? This footer is my ancestor, correct? And I want to identify this footer by using CoffeeScript, and footer is ancestor for this one. But which number ancestor is footer? So if you can see over here, it is like 1, 2, 3, I guess, right? So it is, I guess, third number of ancestor. So let me do one thing, but there is only one footer. Let's go with footer. Can you see what it has done? So it has directly identified the web element using the ancestor. So it is ident because I have seen that only one footer I have in the ancestor, so I can directly write footer. It will not get confused, right? So let me try to identify something else. So I have one body tag style, I have one p, that one we have seen. Coffee script, this is not the one, this is the one we have seen. What is this one? Let's see. Div class, something is there, right? Okay, so div class is the entire one. Let's, if we try to identify this one, we can simply write ancestor has, here you can write div one element matching. This is the entire one, okay? You can see the green mark. Yes, entire one. So all those things are ancestor. To which? To CoffeeScript. In fact, for AngularJS also those are ancestor, right? Because those are sibling. So ancestor for this one will be same for this one. Try to understand this point, okay? So for all your siblings, the ancestors will remain same. Always remember. For example, if I remove this one and if I write Angular over here, enter, it will give me the same output, okay? Let me write star over here. For Angular, I have 6 elements matching as an ancestor, and if I change it to Bourbon also, again it's 6 element, right? If I change it to Rails, again 6. Sorry, which is this one? Okay, so for Rails it again changes, okay? So I will explain this point later. For Rails it should not change because Rails is sibling. Okay, cool. So for Rails, Bourbon, CoffeeScript, AngularJS, for all those four, all the number of parents and ancestors supposed to remain same always, okay? Because that's how the DOM structure works, okay? That's how the DOM structure works. Angular, 6 elements matching, right? And if I go for coffee, 6 elements matching. If I go for rail, 6 element matching. If I go for bourbon, 6 element matching. And if I go for something else, let jeans, something is written as jeans, right? Again it's 6 elements matching. So for this one also, this is anyway not our not the sibling for this one, but still for the lower one also there is 6 element. This part I am checking basically, right? So this is how you can identify. See, this is another p, this is another p, right? Which has two link basically. You can see over here, right? There are two links. James is one, the first one will be this one. So both are siblings to each other, right? Both are siblings to each other. And this p, so now understand, these two are child for footer, correct? Footer is parent, this p and this p are child. and A will be child for P, and P will be parent for A. Footer will be ancestor for A. Okay, so whenever you get confused, just expand those things. Okay, expand until it will complete, then you can see the entire flow. Okay, see, for example, here field set is inside form, so this will be child for this, and this will be child for this. Correct. So this is a, when you open, so close this one. Okay, so now you got it that this is child for this one. Close this one. Now close this one.